Okay, hello students. This objective for today is we will be solving multi-step absolute value equations. So you can see down here that I'd like you to take notes on this video. Okay, so let's start off with looking at what an absolute value is. So before we can solve a multiple step absolute value equation, we have to know what an absolute value is. So it's pretty simple. Absolute value on a number line, it's the distance you are from 0. So let's look down here. We have absolute value of -7. Well, the absolute value from -7, and this is saying how far are you from 0? Well, if we look here, we are 7 units away. And same thing with 4, we're 4 units away. So the easy way to remember it is that distance is always measured in positive units. So therefore, whatever's inside the absolute value is always positive. So that's just a quick refresher. Let's actually look at how to solve absolute value equations. So an equation, note that we have an equal sign, and I have a variable. So in this case, I have x is equal to 4, and I want to solve, well, what is x equal to? Sorry, I have the absolute value of x is equal to 4. So to solve this, well, there's two possible answers that could go in here. I have my positive and my negative. I'm going to set up two columns. Because look, I can have a positive 4 or I could have a negative 4. And either one of those, if I put a negative 4 up here instead of this x, then the absolute value of -4 is equal to 4. If I were to put a 4 up here, well, the absolute value of 4 is equal to 4. So you can see that I get two distinct answers. So the absolute value, it yields two distinct answers for my variable. Okay, let's look at a little bit more complicated here. So again, you'll notice we're going to do the same, follow the same steps, which we'll write down on the next problem. So I have the absolute value of m plus 4 is equal to 1. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to make two columns, because I'm going to have two values, possible values for my m. We're going to call this my positive column and this my negative column. So again, we'll write down the steps on the next example problem, but just watch me solve this problem. For the positive column, I'm going to write m plus 4 is equal to positive 1, and then over here I'm going to write m plus 4 is equal to -1. Okay, now from this step, I'm going to just solve each of these equations on their own. So on this side, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides because I want to isolate the m. And when I do that, this side I'm just left with m, and this side 1 minus 4 is equal to a -3. Okay, let's do the same thing on this side. Well, again, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And what I'm left with is m is equal to, well, -1 minus 4 is -5. So these are our two answers. We have these two answers, and we could check those to make sure that they make sense. So let's plug in a -3 here. Well, if I were to plug this -3 in, -3 plus 4. Well, -3 plus 4 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is equal to 1, so that checks out. And what about this one? If I had a -5. Well, -5 plus 4 is a -1. The absolute value of -1 is still positive 1, so that's why we get the two answers. So both of those check off, so they both work. Okay, let's do a little bit more difficult of a problem, and we'll write the steps down on this side, so you can follow these steps for solving your absolute value equation. So the first step is you can see here I have 4 times the absolute value of 5x plus 3 is equal to 92. Well, my first step is always to isolate your absolute value. So I'm just going to abbreviate that abs value. So on this side, you can see that in order to isolate this, well, I have to divide both sides by 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. That cancels that out, and I'm just left with the absolute value of 5x plus 3. And 92 divided by 4, well, let's see. 4 goes into 9 twice with 1 left over, and 4 goes into 12 3 times, so that would be 23. Okay, now we're going to go back and do the next step just like we did for the previous problem, and that's create 2 columns. So create a positive and negative column. Alright, so let's do that. Let's put our positive one over here, negative one over here. Alright, so we have on the positive column 5x plus 3 is equal to positive 23, and on the negative column we have 5x plus 3 is equal to negative 23. And again, we're just going to come through and solve. So the first step, and I'm not going to write these many steps in, is to subtract 3 from both sides. So we have 5x is equal to 20. Divide both sides by 5, and you would get x is equal to 4. That's one answer. The next one is, again, subtract 3 from both sides, and you get negative 26. Divide both sides by 5, and you get x is equal to negative 26 divided by 5. So that was my 2 answers. So let's just finish off our notes here and sum this up. So notice I had my positive and negative columns. So my last step was then solve each equation. And I should always put this last step, the fourth step, was check your answers. Check your answers. So if I plug in a 4 here, 5 times 4 is 20, 20 plus 3 is 23, 23 times 4 is equal to 92. And let's look at this one. If I plug in a negative 26 over 5, well, the 5's cancel out, so I'm given negative 26 plus 3 is negative 23. The absolute value of that is positive 23. 23 times 4, again, is 92. So both of those work out. Okay, so you guys will have quite a few of these to practice with. And if you have any questions, you can message me on Edmodo.